My name is Darragh McLoughlin, and we're here on Inis Oírr, one of the Aran Islands, and we're at the Áras Éanna Art Centre. These are just a collection of some of the many drawings I did, balance drawings. What I've been doing is essentially balancing objects on my hand, and these are found objects, mostly plants or sticks or brambles or flowers, and I would use the movement created by the balance to draw something on a page. In the beginning I was really doing stick balancing, but then I realized, well, why am I just using a stick? Like what will change if I change the object, and how will that influence the quality of the drawing I'm making? And just opening up to all sorts of different objects has really opened up the project into different qualities of drawing, qualities of line that I wouldn't have found otherwise. Well, balancing is a part of the language of juggling. People have been, balancing stuff and juggling for a very long time. But it's always been a way of, I feel, adding difficulty. So you can do something, then can you do it with this other element at the same time? The moment when this really clicked for me was when the Lords of Strut were in Catapult around 6 years ago, and they were using all these foam noodles, that you have in a swimming pool that you kind of help kids to float. And I started blind balancing a foam noodle, and I just noticed how much movement it created in my body. And then I thought, wow, I should find the easiest possible objects to balance, but balance them in the hardest way. So instead of taking a teaspoon where I'm stuck on my nose, because that's the only place I can balance a teaspoon, I could take a broomstick and put it in the most improbable balance I can think of. When I was working on my show Stickman, I had this very important discovery where I had these sticks and they were always perfectly cut. One day I just put it in my living room and I was trying to play this game of like, can I find the perfect balance point? At one point I was like, oh, there it is. It just balances by itself. And then I realized, I'm the problem. It was a very profound epiphany I had in that moment of realizing that it's me that can't stop moving. But once you put them on a body, they start to move and you end up in this endless dance together where one is causing the other to move, and a form appears that I would never have thought to make if I did it with my own agency. I love that kind of sense of chaos and randomness that's the heart of all of this work. This curly dock is actually a really nice thing to balance because all those seeds add a lot of weight to the top of it. Perfect. The island existence, it's a world in itself. A smaller world, but you just have to look closer at things. I like to impose limitations on myself because then that's what I have to work with. I don't get overwhelmed by possibility. Some locals were looking at me funny when I was chopping down their, exotic plants. Oh, look at this. Now we're talking. Rusty old metal pole, nice and heavy. Look here now. Now that has that's a lot heavier than this one. So we'll make the type of balancing I can do, it'll be much more stable. Yeah, so like this one, I just have it. I'm really happy about this object because I know I'll be able to balance it very well. But then what's it about? Is it about balancing them well, or about embracing the chaos that comes from the more difficult objects. So if I'm balancing something, there's a kind of movement that's appearing, going into my hand. I mostly, I have a bit of tension in my shoulder and elbow I can, like, for example, I'll try to keep it as still as possible. So all the movement's happening in a real micro scale down here. But then I could try to relax my shoulder, relax into the body, and then suddenly the movement's going into my center. I could try to relax even more. I'm trying not to make the movement happen, but just change the quality of how I'm holding my body. Another one is if I look away from the object, then I'm less precise because a lot of it is coming from my eye coordination. And so there, another quality is coming into the body. So I have certain dials I can turn. So I could turn up control, so don't move. Or I could turn down control and more movement appears. It becomes this relation with the object, relation with what it's offering me in the quality of movement and how I can play with that inside my body, which is a whole work in itself. Like, instead of trying to make it look like something, I just change my state and then that changes how it appears. And so I'm less in control of the outcome and more in control of how it's happening. Feeling is, it has a much sharper movement than the last one. I never did art in school. My brother and sister were always the better drawers in the family. And there was a really nice moment where, for the first time ever, it made me put a pen to paper for another purpose than writing something. And I like that I'm still not trying to draw something. It's still connected to actually the balance rather than trying to create some sort of perfect portrait or... I especially like this one.
Upright.
Yeah. I'm feeling, firstly, I think it's interesting from different angles. So there's most of the drawings I'm doing aren't so long. They're usually because there's always a center point. And if I'm trying to stay in a center point, I'm always moving in and out of it. But here, somehow, the center point got stretched out. But what I think would be nice is then, when you see it like this, suddenly it's having a very different form. beautiful. You could really see that little change of direction there into this loop-de-loop and out again. I just went into an art supply store in Paris and just started pulling stuff off the shelves and grabbed as many different types of pens and markers. I didn't actually go in looking for these ones. I went looking more for really wide-tipped permanent markers. But then I found them and I was like, oh, okay, there's something there. And they just turned out to be much more interesting than anything I used before. Like one little petal got stuck in the ink. Because often I leave them all out. I cover the whole floor with them, and I leave them out, and I come back the next day and look at them. And that's usually when I see some sort of connection to them. The best ones I've done were from the most chaotic objects, and it's just like a really quick drawing and a form appeared, and I looked afterwards, I was like, wow. We're really conditioned to see things as symbols for other things. It's really hard to see a squiggle as the squiggle itself and not look for something else in it. Yeah, I wonder about that. When we were on our walk, I chose this flower, and I have a feeling that if I present a drawing with the flower, it will give people a very different feeling about the drawing than if it was some dried stick. Now let's see how beautiful you really are. I'm going to try to make it move as much as possible. See what happens there. Well, there's a lot of metaphors connecting to a line, our lifeline, the line of our ancestries, the line we walk every day, the Google Map line. There's a lot of paths appearing and stories appearing. And I think a line is a good metaphor for a story. And so maybe each of these drawings is not so much figurative, but a mini story of a movement that happened. If people don't know anything about the process, do these have value? Or are they just bad drawings? The process of making these drawings is as important as the drawings themselves. I think I could, using different framing tools, impose a lot of meaning onto this work. So I could describe very personal feelings I have and put that next to the work. I could put emotions on the drawings. I could describe important topics or themes in the world that people are dealing with. And all of these would color the work in different ways. And that's something I like to do sometimes, but I really see it as a sort of form of manipulating how people are seeing and perceiving what I'm doing. So I won't title them, because I think a title will, if I called one of them Lost Puppy or a flower, I think that will really dictate how the audience or the viewer has to see it. But I'm very hesitant to overuse language in describing what this work might mean, because I think it would be very insincere, and I don't think the work needs to mean something other than what is there already. I see a big value in getting lost and trying to not see too much what everyone else is doing, so that one can have time to have your own ideas and thoughts about things. We must put ourselves in a situation where we can have realizations and epiphanies about things, rather than always wondering what everyone else is thinking. I think sometimes we take meaning a little bit too seriously, and there's a lot more space for playfulness in the world. You want a bit of this, don't you? Sophia and Loki have been visiting this donkey almost every day. It's a lonely life being a donkey. Give a big shout out and thank you to firstly Stephen McGinley, who's been filming this short video documentary with me, to ISACS and the whole team there who co-produced this residency, and to Áras Éanna, the art centre that sits here on this lovely island. And also to my partner Sophia and my son Loki, who were here on the island with me, and they left this morning. But that was very beautiful to have them here.